They say that when the earth dries up, it's not just the plants that die. Souls fade away too. I lived through it. My name is Daniel, and if I ever believed hell was beneath our feet, it was because of what happened on my small farm, hidden in a forgotten corner of New Mexico. I used to think I had seen it all. Years of failed crops, storms that destroyed everything, even hunger knocking on the door. But what I lived through, even now it chills me to the bone just to remember. And the worst part, I wasn't the only one it happened to. If you're one of those who love terrifying stories, the kind that keeps you awake at night, stay with me and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell, because here, fear is as real as it gets. It all started in a cursed year, the kind no one wants to remember. The sun showed no mercy, and the sky seemed to have abandoned us. It hadn't rained in months, and the land, the same one that once fed me, turned to stone. I lived with Emma, my wife of many years, in a small adobe house that barely stood, but it was our shelter. Every day we got up before the roosters crowed, hoping to see some sprout in the fields. But all we found was dust, cracks, and a silence that sank into our bones. The corn wouldn't sprout, not even weeds dared to grow. The animals, poor things, dropped one after another, and the neighbors all the same, struggling to survive with empty hands. I watched Emma grow more worried by the day. Her once strong hands trembled when she served me the weak coffee we brewed from what little we had left. The night stretched on, filled with prayers that seemed to vanish into thin air. Deep down, we both knew we were on the edge of a cliff. People in town said it was punishment from St. Jude, that we had forgotten to pray to him. Others claimed the land had been cursed for generations. But me, I just wanted a way out. Anything. Because when you're at the edge, any hand that reaches out feels like salvation. But what I didn't know was that some hands, instead of saving you, drag you under. That day, the weight of desperation was too much to bear. I told Emma I was going for a walk, but what I really needed was air, or maybe to forget the burden I carried. I went all the way to Old Joe's bar, an old place by the road, with walls stained by dampness and two concrete tables that seemed fused to the ground. Only the hum of a rusty fan and the chirping of crickets filled the air. I sat in the corner with a small glass of whiskey, watching the drops slide down the glass when I saw him walk in. He was a man I'd never seen before, and that was already strange, because in these small towns, everyone knows everyone, or at least knows faces. Tall, skinny, with skin so dark it nearly blended with the shadows. He wore a low leather hat that barely revealed his eyes. His clothes were dark, as if the dust of the road never touched him. He approached slowly, with a slight smile, as if he already knew who I was. He sat next to me without asking, and ordered the same drink I had. He glanced sideways at me and said, in a voice more like a whisper, "Tough year, huh, friend?" I didn't answer, just nodded. What was there to say? We all knew what was going on. "The harvest?" he asked after. "Dead," I replied without looking at him. "Maybe, just maybe, there's something that can be done." I chuckled under my breath. What could he do? Pull rain from under his hat? Bring life back to the land with words? "My wife," he continued as if my laugh didn't matter, "knows things that few remember. She can help if you want." Something in his gaze unsettled me. It wasn't the usual look of a stranger making conversation. There was something more, something I couldn't name. I felt a chill, but the idea of losing everything pushed me to listen. "But there's one condition," he added, leaning closer. "No one can know, not even your wife." I stayed silent, weighing his words. What did I have to lose? What other choice did I have? "All right," I said, my mouth dry as dust. He stood up slowly, leaving a few coins on the table. "Tomorrow, before sunrise," he told me. "Wait for us." And just like that he left, as if he was part of the night itself. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the house creak, wondering if I had done the right thing. But it was too late. Something had been set in motion, and there was no turning back. There was no light in the sky yet when I heard the slow clop of a donkey approaching. I got up, heart pounding. Emma slept, unaware of what I'd agreed to. I stepped into the yard, and there they were. The man from the bar, serious, as if the night still clung to him, and behind, riding the donkey, was her. I don't know how to explain it, but seeing her froze me. The woman was wrapped in a shawl, so black it seemed to swallow what little light there was. Her face was covered, only her hands were visible, thin, almost skeletal, holding the reins with a calmness that unsettled me. The man didn't say a word, just motioned for me to follow. "Tell your wife we're buyers interested in land," he whispered before Emma came out. I did as he said. Emma barely looked up, too tired to even hope. She offered them coffee, and the woman's eyes never left her, though she said nothing. Then, with the same calm they arrived with, they asked to see the land. We walked through the dry furrows where corn once stood, and now there was only dust. The sun had barely started to warm the air, but I was already sweating down my back. The woman walked ahead, her shawl nearly brushing the ground, and the man followed with heavy steps. I trailed behind, not knowing what to expect. When we reached the center of the field, she stopped. She turned to me, and her voice, rough like stone grinding stone, cut through me. "From here I go on alone." I wanted to ask why, but something in her eyes stopped me. She stepped into the remains of the cornfield and vanished. The man grabbed my arm, not painfully, but firmly enough to make it clear I shouldn't move. "Wait here," he ordered, not looking at me. The wind blew strangely, carrying what sounded like faint cries. Time lost meaning. I didn't know if minutes or hours passed. I only heard the crunch of dry leaves and a murmur that came and went, a sound not of this world. When the woman returned, her skin looked paler, and her eyes glowed in the dim light. She approached, placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "The work is done." A chill ran from my feet to my soul. It wasn't fear, it was something deeper, older, something I should never have accepted. That night, when I closed my eyes, I dreamt of the cornfield, green, vast, and of Emma, trapped among the plants, begging me to free her. At dawn, I felt something was different. I stepped into the yard, still half asleep, and lost my breath. Where there had only been dry land, now green stalks sprouted, strong, as if life had returned all at once. I walked among them, touching them gently, unable to believe it. The corn was growing, and not just that, it grew with a force I had never seen. Emma came out behind me, astonished. "Did you see what happened?" she asked, with a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. I nodded, not knowing what to say. How could I explain to her that all of this was because of what I had done? I couldn't, I shouldn't. I just held her close and told her that maybe, at last, the earth had heard our prayers. Day after day, the cornfield grew taller. Neighbors came by curious, full of questions I dodged with half-truths. "What did you use? Where did you find water?" they'd ask. "Just luck," I'd reply, forcing a smile. But the greener the field became, the darker the house felt. Emma started feeling cold, even though the summer heat was relentless. At night, she'd wake up drenched in sweat, saying there was something in the cornfield, something watching her. I tried to calm her, told her it was just bad dreams, but inside, doubt was growing. The noises in the house changed. The wood creaked like someone was walking at night, and sometimes I felt someone standing behind me when I was alone in the kitchen. There was no peace. The joy of the harvest was tangled with a fear I couldn't place. The corn kept growing, taller than ever. The ears were large, heavy, golden. People in town started looking at me differently, like they knew something strange was going on. And every time I stepped into the field, I felt the earth breathing. But not like before, not with life, but with something hidden, something waiting. Emma, on the other hand, looked more tired each day. She lost her appetite, and her eyes, those eyes that always held such strength, were fading. I didn't want to see it. I clung to the idea that everything was normal, that we were finally making it. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, when I believed the corn would save us, that everything would go back to how it was, Emma told me, in a quiet voice, one early morning, "Daniel, I feel like someone's following us. After that morning, when Emma said she felt footsteps behind her, everything changed forever. It wasn't just exhaustion or chills anymore. Her skin began to pale, and her eyes, once bright with hope, turned dull, as if staring at something far away, something I couldn't see. At first, I thought it was from fatigue, from the strain of the past months. But soon, I knew it was more. A strange fever took hold of her, a fever that wouldn't break with cold cloths or the herbs we usually used. She shivered at dusk, murmuring names of people we didn't know. One night, as I tried to sleep, I heard her sobbing. I approached and saw her speaking to someone in her sleep, or so I thought. She spoke in broken phrases. "Don't take me. Not yet." Fear clenched my chest, and in that moment, I understood I needed real help. At dawn, I mounted the donkey and rode up to the hills, where Mrs. Martha lived, a healer who knew the old secrets, the ones no one dared to mention anymore. She, the moment she saw me, knew something was wrong. "What did you do, Daniel?" she asked, looking at me with those eyes that seemed to read me inside out. "I just wanted to save the harvest," I said, feeling like I was breaking apart. She didn't ask for more. She took her herbs, some red ribbons, and a pouch with a strong scent, and followed me. When she crossed the threshold of the house, she stopped, took a deep breath, and murmured, "This place isn't just growing corn, it's harvesting souls." She entered the room where Emma lay, pale, barely moving. Her dry lips whispered something unintelligible. Mrs. Martha touched her, closed her eyes, and began to pray. It wasn't a church prayer. It was older, heavier. Her words were whispers that seemed to echo off the walls. I waited outside, hands sweating, heart pounding, with a dark feeling clouding my mind. An hour passed, maybe more. When she came out, she wiped her forehead and said, "I did what I could, but if the evil came from where I think, this won't stop easily." I wanted to ask more, but her look told me everything. She knew what had happened. She knew what had entered our home. And I felt the ground open beneath my feet. That night, the house was quieter than ever. I only heard the ticking of my own fear, waiting for the moment when the earth would come to collect what I owed. 2 days passed since Mrs. Martha came, and Emma didn't get better. Her body grew lighter, as if slowly fading away. She no longer spoke, only breathed with difficulty, each breath a struggle. I couldn't wait anymore. I couldn't watch the woman I'd spent my life with disappear before my eyes. Then I understood. The earth hadn't given us anything for free. What sprouted from the field wasn't a blessing, but a result of a deal I, blinded by hunger and despair, had accepted without thinking. And if the earth had come alive, maybe it could die too. At dawn, with the sky still covered in grey, I rose without making a sound. I grabbed the machete, like someone about to cut out a sickness, and headed to the cornfield. I walked among the tall green stalks that seemed to greet me, unaware of what I was about to do. I climbed onto the old tractor, the one I barely used, and with trembling hands started it. The engine roared, breaking the morning silence. I sat, took a deep breath, and moved forward. The first row fell easily. The leaves crackled, the ears snapped, and the dust rose as if the earth itself wept, but with every yard the air grew thicker, hotter. I felt something watching me, that every plant I destroyed marked me more. I didn't stop. Each round was a battle with myself. The image of Emma, frail and still, gave me strength. I couldn't lose her, not like this. Sweat blinded me, dust covered me, and the tractor's roar merged with a buzzing in my ears, like thousands of voices trying to stop me. But I kept going. Hours passed, and when the last plant fell, I turned off the engine and climbed down, collapsing to my knees. I looked around. Only soil remained, broken, wounded, but free, or so I thought. I dragged myself back home. Emma was the same, but inside, a flicker of hope burned. I thought that by destroying the crop, everything would break, that whatever had brought the evil would leave. I sat beside her, held her hand, and waited. That night, the wind blew softly again, clean. For the first time in weeks, I slept without dreams, but when I woke, when I opened the window, the world stopped. In front of me, the cornfield stood tall, green, immense, untouched. I couldn't believe it. I rubbed my eyes, opened and closed the window, but it was real. Every stalk of corn, every green leaf, every ear, they were all there, as if nothing had happened, as if the earth mocked me, mocked my desperate attempt to break what had already been written. I ran breathless to the house. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. I opened the bedroom door, and there was Emma lying there, just the same. But something was different. Something froze my blood. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were hollow, like dark wells that no longer reflected anything. I approached, trembling, took her hand, and it was cold. Her mouth slightly open, as if wanting to speak, but silence filled everything. I collapsed beside her, shouting, crying, begging her to come back. I pleaded to the heavens, to hell, to anything that would listen, to give her back to me. But the only answer was the sound of the wind through the cornfield. That same cornfield, now taller than ever. In that moment, I knew. Emma had paid the price. The earth had collected its debt, and I, out of greed, out of fear, had condemned her. I don't know how long I stayed there, holding her body, lost in memories. Emma's laughter, her hands working the soil, her voice calling me at dusk, all of it faded, as if it had never existed. When I could move, I carried her to the mesquite tree, her favorite, the one where she used to rest after long days. With my own hands, I dug her grave. No prayers, no farewells, just me, the shovel, and the cursed earth that had taken her from me. I buried her as the evening fell, when the sky turns red and shadows grow long. I didn't feel fear, only a vast emptiness, a loneliness heavier than any punishment. I returned to the house, closed every door, every window. I didn't want to see that cornfield again. I didn't want to breathe that death-filled air. And the next day, I left. I left everything behind, the land, the house, the memories. I rode away on my horse without looking back, as if by running I could escape the guilt eating me alive. But you can't run from your soul. And even though I traveled miles, though dust covered my tracks, I knew that shadow would follow me. I went as far as I could, crossed hills, valleys, towns where no one knew my name. Eventually I arrived at a forgotten ranch near Arizona, where a cousin's friend needed a caretaker. I offered my help without saying much, and he didn't ask. Sometimes silence is the only refuge for those haunted by too many ghosts. The house was small, surrounded by brush, far from any town. Exactly what I needed. I threw myself into the work, rising with the sun and falling asleep only when exhaustion overtook me. I didn't speak to anyone, didn't seek company. I just wanted time to pass, to erase my memory. But some things neither time nor distance can bury. Each night, when the wind rustled the trees, I heard a whisper. At first, I thought it was the breeze or some animal. But as the days went on, the sounds became clearer. It was as if something crawled outside the house, as if dry leaves were being stepped on by feet I couldn't see. I'd get up, grab the lantern, open the door, and there would be nothing, only darkness and the echo of my own steps. But always the same smell, a scent of damp earth, of freshly cut corn. That smell I knew too well, that now turned my stomach. I tried convincing myself it was my mind, that memories were playing tricks on me. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Emma, lying under the mesquite, those hollow eyes accusing me. And the cornfield, that damn cornfield, growing behind me, never letting me rest. There were nights when I heard her voice, calling to me from far away, not sweetly, not lovingly. It was a dry summons, like she was claiming what I owed her. I'd wake up sweating, gasping, searching for something I wasn't sure was real. The people at the ranch started to notice. They saw the dark circles under my eyes, how on edge I was. Some said I talked to myself, that I walked around at night murmuring names. I didn't care what they thought. I just wanted to hold on, one more day, without losing my mind. But deep down, I knew I was already marked. that the pact wouldn't break with distance or silence, that I had left everything behind except the guilt, and deep down I knew that sooner or later I'd have to pay again. Time passed, or so it seemed. Days blended together, all grey, all empty. I didn't count weeks or months, I just survived. Until one afternoon, while resting in the shade of a tree, I decided to go to the nearest town. It had been so long since I'd spoken to anyone, and maybe, just maybe, I needed to hear a voice other than my own. I walked into an old bar, much like Old Joe's, though this one felt a bit lighter. I sat in a corner, ordered a whiskey, and let the dusty breeze of the place surround me. There were few men there, all quiet, until one, an old man with skin like leather, started telling a story. I didn't pay attention at first, but something in his words made me listen. They say that in Texas, a farmer made the land bloom in the middle of a drought. No one understood how he did it, but they say he was seen talking to a man in a leather hat, someone who came out of nowhere, offering help. My glass shook in my hand. Later, his wife fell ill, the old man continued. No one could save her, and the cornfield grew as if it fed on that man's sorrow. I felt my blood turn to ice. It was the same story, mine, but in another place, with another name. And what happened to him? Someone asked. The old man shrugged. They say he vanished, that he was last seen walking into the hills, talking to himself. But the strangest part, others have seen that same man in the hat, in other towns, speaking with other farmers. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood, left the money on the table and stumbled outside. The air hit me like a punch. I leaned against a wall, breathing deeply, trying to stop the shaking. I wasn't alone, I wasn't the only one. That man, that shadow, was still out there, still offering, and others, like me, would keep falling. I realized this wasn't just one story. It was a cycle that never ends, that keeps turning, trapping those who, like me, dare to accept what they don't understand. And then I knew that no matter how far I ran, no matter how well I hid, there would always be something waiting in the dark. From that day in the bar, I knew there was nothing more to be done. I understood everything, no matter how much I ran, how much I hid. The shadow had marked me, and sooner or later it would come for me. I returned to the ranch, but I wasn't the same. I walked through the halls with a sense of farewell, as if every corner was telling me the end was near. I stopped working, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. I just waited, because when you know evil is near, all you can do is prepare. The nights grew longer. The wind carried whispers that slipped through the cracks, and sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I saw her. Emma, standing under the mesquite, calling me without words, with those hollow eyes that haunted me. One early morning the sound returned. It wasn't just any sound, it was the crunch of dry leaves, the slithering of something I knew too well. I got up, took the lantern, and stepped into the yard. In front of the house there was nothing, just the earth, the high moon, and the echo of my heartbeat. But when I looked down, I nearly fell to my knees. A small sprout, green, fresh, was growing right there, in the middle of the dust. I laughed, a dry, broken laugh. I knew what it meant. The cycle had begun again. I sat beside the sprout, watching it, like staring at an old enemy. I wouldn't touch it, wouldn't try to pull it out. Why bother? I had tried before, and the earth always wins. Now I live like this, waiting. I know it will come. That the woman in the shawl will appear again, that the man in the hat will look at me once more with those empty eyes, and this time there won't be any deals, no pacts, only the end that I deserve. Sometimes, when the wind howls strong, I hear my name, not in a human voice, not in words that can be repeated. It's a call that only those who have crossed the line understand, and when the time comes, I won't run, I'll surrender. Because once the earth claims you, it never lets go. And you? How far would you go to save what you love most?